Hi, welcome to the Sacred You podcast. I'm Rachel Goodwin, and I'm a channel and healer who loves to teach and empower others. I offer a look at spirituality in fresh and new ways, and you can see more of my work at my website at rachelgoodwin.dk and the classes and sessions that I do. Auheia valeana oe e kahaliko puhakukui kuhia o kaunaia a kahapu kumamoninei Pikoi kahimanaho I kahapili koholuaia Ea ke kaula lo pihana e kohopu kapaliliai Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puokukui Welcome everyone to the Sacred You podcast. Today we've got something slightly different because Sarah Richmond is interviewing me, Rachel Goodwin, today. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, Rachel. How are you doing today?
Well, all right, actually. Had quite a good day and I'm all excited and happy to see you and to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what we need, isn't it, in these difficult times?
Oh, I know. I don't know what I would do without being able to talk to people over the internet. Really, I'd go mad.
Absolutely. No, not far off it myself, but hanging on in there.
So, I don't know if you just wanted to introduce yourself a little bit before, sort of get into talking about me.
Yes. Okay, so I'm Sarah, and Sarah Richmond, and I my day job is to work in mental health, supporting people in their mental health recovery. And I like to say by night, by day I do that, but by night, under the cover of the moon, I explore the divine feminine, and I'm on a very, very deeply personal journey exploring goddess myth, goddess mythology, and divine divine feminine spirituality specifically. And I have a Instagram page at the Tiny Temple, and that's where I share all my musings. And it's just my personal journey, really, with what I've been able to get emotionally, spiritually, from diving into the divine feminine. My upbringing was a very sort of patriarchal Christian upbringing, and it's been quite a journey exploring myself and just the role of woman in that aspect of the divine, really, because it's not really spoken about in the Bible.
No, I love your Instagram page, the Tiny Temple. I think that's such a cool name for it.
I don't know where it came from.
No, it's lovely.
I guess because it is, it's just a little sacred space, and that's what it's to encourage us to do. Really, is that we can make a temple. We don't even have to make a temple. We are the temple, and wherever we are, whatever space we're in our bedroom, in our gardens, there's always space for the divine and welcoming the divine into our lives. So it's about, and I think you also encourage this through your work, is to really make spirituality every day, and really, rather than something separate, it's something that's already within. It's not somewhere we have to fly off to. It's accessible.
Yeah.
Here we just have to look in a different way.
Yeah. So
So how did we meet? We met is the word symbiotic? We met, who knows, but it was about Glastonbury, and it was on the Feast of Magdalene. I'd gone to Glastonbury on the Feast of Magdalene, a little bit of a personal pilgrimage, and and I came across your work. But previous to that, I'd had an experience, let's say, where I felt connected by somebody called Sarah on the Feast of Magdalene. Well, that's quite appropriate, isn't it? And then started searching the internet, thinking, who is this Sarah? Is it me? No, I know it's not me. And then came across your work, which just unfolded this amazing journey, really. And we've had some contact since, and done some work around Glastonbury, which has been fun.
You were also my Zoom trainer, weren't you? You trained me on Zoom.
Oh yeah.
So very helpfully, because I didn't know how to manage all the buttons and everything, and I had to do calls. So she very helpfully trained me on Zoom. That was very kind of you.
But it's been really just an organic meeting, hasn't it? It's one of those beautiful things that can happen, and it has probably happened as a result of lockdown, really, and going inward a bit more and looking for these connections outside of the traditional ways. And I think that's possibly one of the benefits for me from lockdown, is having that much more reflective journey, going inward, looking for answers. Just because life's not as busy, there isn't as many distractions. And so I think we do go on a more reflective inward journey, don't we?
Yeah, I have to say I can't say that my life is not as busy. It's probably worse now.
Is it?
Than it was. But yes. Well, perhaps I'll tell you about that later. Where should we start?
Indeed, where should we start? So we've had a couple of phone calls, and I've been had the luxury really of speaking to Rachel about her journey, and I just wanted other people to hear really Rachel's journey. And so this is why we're doing this today, really just to kind of change the focus and learn from you about your experiences. And so I think probably the best place to start is just to tell us where you're at now, and what are you doing? What's your offer to the world? What in your here and now?
Yes. Well,
would you define yourself, if you like?
Oh, big question. Let's see what.
Oh, sorry, you're going to have to.
Let's see what comes to mind. Well, I've been having a sort of a deep think about this recently. I've been working with a couple of other women who've been helping me, like, try and work out, what am I doing and how do I communicate that to people. So it is something I've been thinking about a lot. I mean, one thing that I can see quite clearly for myself is that I feel like I've got the role, and I've, taken up the role of being a bit of a torchbearer for Sarah.
Yeah.
Because, like when she first sort of appeared to me 15 or so years ago, there was nothing about her.
Yeah.
And yet she felt so physically present with me.
Yeah.
And I wanted there to be some place where people could find her, other than it just being not just obviously, but other than it just being a spiritual experience. I wanted it to be reflected in the world somehow, because I have to be really, really honest. I've never really gone into why I'm working with Sarah, who she is to me, all this that I just haven't. And I don't know if this is just sort of a bit of a, because like I was a psychiatric nurse like you are, and it's a bit of a pragmatic, oh, well, this needs doing, let's just get on with it, shall we?
Yeah.
And I am that sort of a person. And it's never, I don't know if I've never really wanted to find out, or I just, I'm just so busy getting on with things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really get into it. But she was there for me as someone, and I just loved her. you know, I mean, she wasn't someone who I believed in. The first time, and if I go back a little bit, when my mother died when I was 26, that was when I sort of had my spiritual awakening, because it was such a deeply kind of shocking experience for me that it kind of blew my energy body apart, because I was a very deeply rational and skeptical person. I'd been brought up to be a deeply rational and skeptical person, and I didn't believe in spirit or any of that nonsense. and I discounted all of my own, experiences, of which there was quite a few, but I
Yeah.
dismissed them all as stupid or whatever in some way. And
Yeah.
but when my mum died, it was so traumatic and upsetting for me, and she was so dear to me. I couldn't
Yeah.
dismiss it all because she was so obviously there, just
Yeah.
not in her body anymore. And
Yeah.
I did these Buddhist, she went sort of through a spiritual transformation before she passed. And she was learning transcendental meditation, and she was seeing a
Oh, wow.
healer. She re-embraced the Catholic Church because she was from an Irish family who were Catholic. I wasn't brought up Catholic. She lost her faith when her first husband died when she was pregnant with my elder sister. But she went through all these things, and it was quite a shock for me because my
Yeah.
family wasn't like that, but she opened up a lot of doorways for me just before she died and afterwards. So, in one way, it was one of the most tragic things that happened to me because I was only 26 and she had a misdiagnosed smear. And by the time she was, discovered that she had cancer, it was too late. It was too late to treat her. And she sued the health authority and they admitted liability and gave money.
Wow.
And, it doesn't help. Didn't bring her back.
No.
But, I sort of went round and round there. Went round in so many circles. I can't remember what I was talking about now. Where was I?
Yeah, well, I think you're just talking about the and there's something we found we had in common was that bereavement, and I'm sure other people can relate actually, is the experience of bereavement and grief and loss can for some people be an opening, a spiritual awakening. And I think you were saying before that you'd been of a very rational mindset, and that's very our business, isn't it? Working as in a medical model. Is to be evidence-based, rational, and a lot of the things that we talk about might be dismissed as, being unstable. So it's, this fascinates me about both of us really, is how we align both those sides of ourselves.
Well, I don't have to
but
anymore.
We'll go on to that later.
Because I don't work
You
as
don't
a
have
nurse.
to anymore, that's brilliant. No, I know, you can just go for it. So going back to where we were, you were saying the death of your much beloved mum, and then what did you start going reading, or
it was the healing so
the healing.
But I mean that's what opened me up, was that I could sense her there. Her presence was just, it was so. And then I had to sort of acknowledge to myself that I had a sensory capacity to sense people who no longer had a body, shall we say. And I did, that's what I was telling you. There's some practices in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which my mum had. She'd been reading this book, and they're beautiful practices. And I was looking at this book because she'd underlined bits of it and written things in it. And so it was a way of connecting to my mum to look at this book. And then I started seeing these practices and I just knew I had to do them. And they're to help somebody pass over, basically. And I did them and it worked. And I could feel it. I could feel it happening. And that's another thing which
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a thing. It's funny. I had like my natal chart when I was about 33, my astrology chart. And the woman in there, she was lovely. I'm not sure she works so much now because she got quite poorly, but Sarah Jane Grace, a lady called Sarah Jane Grace, did it for me. And she said in there that I have a gift for working with people who have passed over, and that there was something that I would embrace, at some point in my life. And I've never done it professionally, but for relatives of mine that have died, or friends, relatives, or whatever. Because I don't enjoy working as a medium, shall we say, because I work too much in trance. And it's like with Sarah and angels and that, having them sort of come into my body or whatever, I'm quite happy about that because they're lovely. whereas other people, it feels too invasive, and I'm not
Yeah.
happy. So I
Yeah.
don't do mediumship. But people who have just passed over, I find it very, very easy to communicate with them. I'm very comfortable with that, and I
Yeah.
know if they need help or if they're fine, or so it wasn't a coincidence that that was when I sort of awakened, I think, to my spiritual gift, because I think it is
Yeah.
part of what I've done a lot in past lives. And this
Yeah.
is one of the things we've forgotten, that it's our responsibility to
Yeah.
do in our society. Is burying somebody is not enough. We have
No,
to, yeah,
no. And it's
yeah,
massively stigmatized, and the whole, we're not doing a good enough job, are we? We have all the stuff in place for birth and midwifery and, that kind of stuff. And yet when it comes to passing over, it needs its own rites and ceremonies, but perhaps our ancestors were much more in touch with.
yeah,
But some people
absolutely.
definitely seem to have those gifts and be able to help that transition.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I know there's a lovely lady who does spiritual midwifery down in the southwest of England. I looked several times to do her courses, but I never got around to it. I can't remember her name, but she's written books and stuff like that. But this was something that I just seemed to be able to do,
yeah,
So
I keep hearing this word coming up, a death doula.
yeah,
Really
exactly. I'm a
interesting.
deaf. Hi, my name's Rachel Goodwin, and I'm a deaf.
I'm a death doula.
That'd be a new one to shock and frighten people, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you work with Sarah. Tell us a bit about Sarah for
So
anybody who might be listening and
yeah, who?
hasn't maybe listened to all your back catalogue or.
Yeah. So at some point, so after my mum died, that sort of opened up, me to sort of going, all right, perhaps I have got some sort of capability going on here, but I wasn't sure if I was that keen on it.
No, I can imagine. I can imagine that was quite scary, getting your chart done and being told you could
It was a long,
communicate
yeah,
with people.
it was a long process. It was a long process over many,
Yeah, yeah,
many years, and it took me many, many years to fully accept. And I think even now there's still parts of me that hasn't quite,
yeah,
got into it. But one of the things my mum told me before she died was that I was a healer, and she told me this because Colin, who she was seeing as a
yeah.
healer, I was training in Uxbridge as a nurse, and she wrote to me, because in the days where we used to write each other's letters, this is
Yeah,
before the internet, and
it's very nostalgic, doesn't it?
yeah, that's sort of showing that I'm 50, isn't it? And she wrote to me and said, oh, she started seeing Colin because he's doing healing. I was like, what who's this?
Who's this Colin?
Yeah, who's this taking advantage of my poor ill mother? So I jumped on a train and off I went down to Kent to see what was going on. And I went round to meet him. I said to her, I want to come round and meet him. She was like, oh, okay. And I went and rang on his doorbell, and there was Colin in his Marks and Spencer's cardigan,
Oh,
looking very harmless, answering the door, and
yeah,
quite friendly and ordinary. And I mean, my mum got a lot of benefit out of it. It really helped with her back pain. She had terrible, terrible back pain. And
yeah,
she got a sense of well-being from it. It sort of, it did so much for her.
yeah,
And she gave me a book on healing, and and it went under my bed and gathered dust, and then I gave it back to her. And she was quite disappointed, because up until that point I'd been very good. She'd been kind of feeding me Louise
yeah.
Hayes and people like that, and I'd read them all and loved it. And she was like, I remember her face, she sort of looked all crushed. Oh, all right then. I'm not going to read it, Mum. I'm
Oh,
not going to read it. But then after she died, the little voice on my shoulder wouldn't go away, and it kept going,
yeah.
learn to heal, learn to heal. And after a couple of years of this, I was like, oh, bloody hell. All right then. And that was the end of my nursing career, actually. That was what did it. was training in healing, because it opened me up so much that I couldn't work in that intense atmosphere anymore with a lot of people who were in a state of despair or chaos or whatever. It was just psychically overwhelming for me. And even though I try to do a lot of shielding and mirroring and protecting, and I just couldn't cope. I just broke down, to be honest. I just broke down in the end, and I was burnt out anyway, because I've been trying to rescue everybody for 7 years, you know.
And it's very common, isn't it, in the industries, that it's the burnout, we'd call it. Burnout. But interesting that you've got that sort of spiritual, psychic energy perspective of the burnout as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So you'd transitioned from your nursing career, so what happened next?
Well, I think I had a few months off.
How did you train?
I had a few months off sick before I decided to resign, and I decided that I was just going to give myself some time and just find out what to do next, which is what I did. And I got led towards hypnotherapy, and I trained as a hypnotherapist. I also got pregnant around that time, but I think learning the healing came. So learning the healing came first, and then that kind of finished my nursing career. And then, what happened then? God, it's such a long time. Such a long time ago now.
Did you do any sort of formal training or classes or?
I trained. So I got a book on healing by David Furlong, I think his name is, and he had loads of great exercises in there about healing. And I found that I could just do healing, and that it just worked. But I was like, obviously being trained as a nurse, and in the UK, we're very insurance conscious. And you can't do anything without some sort of qualification. So I went, I'll learn Reiki. Oh, that was it. So I was, before I did the Reiki, I was already practicing on people in my lunch break at work.
I love it.
Giving them healing. And the goddess energies were starting to come through, because the place where I worked, I don't think it exists. No, it doesn't exist anymore. I found out recently. It was a women's service in Purley. And we were an alternative to acute inpatient care for women on the psychiatric wards. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it had its time, but they closed it down in the end, because obviously it was cheaper.
I know, it's
to do that. Which is such a shame. But the woman who was running the place, she was a real visionary and psychotherapist. She was a nurse manager who trained as a psychotherapist as well. And she got this, like, all these books and everything, like, with another vision for women. And one of them was a book of goddess stuff. Yeah, and we photocopied. We called all the rooms after goddesses.
No way.
Yeah, and
that's amazing.
I know, and this is like the first time that really, for me, that I had goddesses.
I want to work somewhere like that,
because I know, because, like, the world we grow up in, I didn't even really know there were goddesses. I don't know about you, but
no,
it never
there's God.
Yeah, God was God, and Jesus was Jesus, and there was nothing about anything divine.
No,
it was so completely absent. And so here we were, and I can remember sitting in the nurse's office, and there was a sofa there and some chairs, and it was me and the person I was working with, and I think she was Indian. She was a lovely woman. And I said, oh, listen to this. I love this one. And it was Quan Yin. And I started reading it out to her. And it said the bit about, Quan Yin had this difficult life and all the rest of it. And her father did this and this happened and that happened and they're suffering and all the rest of it. But the bit that really got me, I was reading out the whole story and I was saying to her, and then Quan Yin, could have left, But as she was leaving and she was sort of going on to the higher dimensions, as it were, she heard the cries of the suffering.
Yeah.
And she couldn't bear it. So she turned back to help them, and she went back.
Yeah.
And it made me cry. I was reading this out and
Yeah.
I was crying. I was like, oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
crying. Why am I crying? It was so, it was really, really, I couldn't really understand it. Of course I do now. But
Yeah.
back then I didn't. So, but the bit I was going to tell you about, that's it. I've sort of remembered where I was going to now. So, for a few years up the road after this, so I had a breakdown, I left nursing, went and trained as a hypnotherapist, and I did that part-time, and I also got pregnant and had a baby. And
as you do.
Yeah, I trained as a priestess. I went on I did a 2 years priestess course. And the same place where this was happening, there was a guy called Edwin Courtney, who's a clairvoyant. You can, he's on Instagram, and I think he's very big on Instagram, and he still teaches and everything in the UK.
Yeah.
And he was doing a workshop about ascended masters, connecting to ascended masters. So I was like, oh, I'll give that a go. Yeah. Off I went. And so we were doing different exercises and all the rest of it. And the exercise was to sit down and open up to an ascended master who would approach you. So I did that. And there was Jesus. And I was like, oh God, it's Jesus. I didn't want Jesus. I wanted Quan Yin or, somebody not Western, that was female, preferably. And he said to me, I am not who you've been told I am.
Wow.
And actually his energy was lovely, but I was still a bit anti-men in those days.
Imagine. That was a real surprise.
And then later on in the same workshop, I was connecting with who was called Lady Nada, but now I know her as Mary Magdalene.
Right.
Yeah. So in that first workshop, I totally got like both sides of the Christ energy. I don't know what else to call it, really.
You kind of met Mum and Dad
I met my Mum and Dad. I was totally unimpressed. I was so unimpressed. It was like, well, no, not with Mary Magdalene. Loved her, loved Lady Nada, but with Jesus, he's. Yeah.
Well, I guess it just confronts all those stereotypes and the idea of Christianity that's been, pushed upon us, really.
Exactly.
And I think that's really interesting that what he said to you is, I'm not who you think I am.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's right now I am working a lot with the divine masculine, because I still have some quite substantial blocks to it. And you can't get away with that if you work with Sarah. It's going to catch you up and bite you on the bum sooner or later, because of course, she has these integrated energies of the divine masculine and feminine. But, at heart, I have always been a divine feminine girl.
Yeah, I agree, because I think for me, in a personal sense, it's about redefining the balance. It's, until I fully acknowledge and step into the divine feminine, it's going to be really difficult for me then to step into and have a relationship and really explore and honor divine masculine. So it's a lot of self-healing first, I think, for a lot of women.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. And it doesn't really matter what phase or stage you're at. And I just think that's wonderful that you're, that you're there in your evolution.
Yeah. I guess so. I'm sure Carl Jung would have a lot to say about it. But going back to that divine feminine energy, it's been so absent from our society. I think it is more there now than it has been, but even so, it's still, it still needs more. So I've loved like wrapping those goddess divine feminine energies around me that my soul just knows and loves so deeply. I've been a priestess so many times in past lives. I mean, I've also been, I also remember lives as, being a monk and nuns, and, I've sort of gone through all the religions, I think, in various lives, feels like, anyway.
Yeah, I always find that interesting with past lives. I mean, I think I have, I haven't necessarily delved into that, but I definitely have deja vus or memories, and certain things come back to me. But I always find it interesting with other people, and they tell you their past lives. They're always like really glamorous, aren't they? I mean, no one ever says, I was a slug. I'm pretty sure we were all pretty mundane.
I think we imagine other people talking about their past lives as glamorous, but I'm not sure they are. I mean, I have to say, it's one of the things that I found because I, trained as a hypnotherapist and I did past life regressions with people. I found them really boring.
Wow, no, that's good. That's what I like to hear.
I so didn't have the patience. Didn't have the patience for it. But, at the end of the day, at my core, I'm an energy healer. And you can clear this stuff up. Like, what I want to do is I want to get in there and heal stuff. Give me the trauma. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I love kind of getting in there and helping that person, like, just find out ways of, like, reframing it or rebalancing it. And it's much quicker. And it's much more satisfying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most of my past life memories have come through spontaneously, and I trust them a lot more because of that. Because I have done past life regressions and things like that, but it's the stuff that comes up when I'm not asking it to, that I really believe in. But yeah, I've had some funny times at the Chalice Well. Real grief, sitting in Chalice Well Gardens and sobbing my heart out and feeling like it's about Jesus. Yeah, and sort of thinking.
Me too, specifically about Jesus. That's really strange,
isn't it?
Interesting.
I know, because I had one of my priestess initiations in the Chalice Well Gardens. So for me, it's such a goddess place, and yet, the Holy Family seemed to be in there, which is why that last Zoom call we did, working with Sarah stuff was so interesting for me, because it's like I can feel it all there, but I don't actually know so much about what it's about.
Yeah, I agree, and that's really interesting, because that is the Chalice Well is where I felt I was sent to self-initiate, and I hadn't necessarily gone down a formal priestess training, but just doing it on intuition. And it was very clear that that's, you have to go in there and almost baptize yourself, for want of a better word, which was incredibly funny when there's sort of people and tourists walking around, and and the water was very cold, and I did it, and it's really funny that two young girls joined me, and I can't remember their names, but I remember one of their names being really significant, and that it was just so beautiful, just such a beautiful experience, and to have these lovely girls who probably got it in a way. They were splashing water on each other and just having fun, and it's such a holy, magical place, isn't it?
Totally. But yeah, I really needed to do those 2 years of the course, because I was still very much removed from that part of myself. I really needed help to be able to reclaim it, and I never could have done it. on my own. It wasn't like the healing. Like, I didn't need to do those healing courses, but I could do it anyway. But they taught me a level of structure and protection, and that was really useful. But you know what I mean? And I think that's it. I think we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and I have this very strong analytical mind that is very useful at certain times. But other times it's a real pain in the arse, because I just I needed to have it just totally got in the way, and I had so many wonderful experiences. We used to meet up once a month for Saturday and Sunday, and I had so many wonderful experiences on there. I couldn't deny it to myself that it was happening, because and that's it with me. I these days I am much more open-minded than I used to be. I don't have the same sense of cynicism because I've been proved wrong so many times now. So what I do now is I approach the world with an open mind, and I wait to see what my own senses and my own experience and my own guidance is really.
Yeah. And that's a really important thing, isn't it? That people have their own discernment and trust their own selves and their intuition.
Exactly, because that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, which is what everyone should do, because you're the only person that knows when it's the right time for you to embrace something.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I get that with sacred sites. Like, if I go to a sacred site and I haven't been called there, nothing really happens. But if I go to a place where I've been called to, it's this really profound initiation journey. All these things happen and all the rest of it. And that's why, we have to do the things on our path at the right time, in divine timing for us, not to somebody else's agenda or what you think is the right thing.
And that can happen a lot on your spiritual journeys. You sort of meet people or get involved in things and they just don't feel right. Or you just know there's something about this. I think it's important people listen to that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And like sometimes I've had books or something and I thought, oh, this is a load of rubbish. And I've put it up on my shelf. And then 5 years later, it's just suddenly sparkled at me and gone, and I've picked it up and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's about, where you are and all the rest
being
of it.
Ready to receive that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Jesus came first, but then I actually worked with Mary Magdalene a lot because I just felt totally at home with her. And I also got initiated as a priestess of Sophia and Shekinah as well after.
So tell us a little bit about Sophia energy and...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's just very much a felt thing. And like I've had dreams about Sophia and Isis as well. And it was kind of like she's like the key. She's the thing at the center of it. And Sarah is actually very connected to her as well.
Yeah.
But as a goddess, I find her like my logical mind won't allow me to get hold of her. I try, but it's like, no. And like sometimes I read things that other people have written, like, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But like now, like wanting to talk about her, my mind just goes, I can't say any words. It's like, it's really strange.
So Sophia, from what I understand, is from the Gnostic traditions that it's a female aspect of God.
Yeah.
Of the ultimate. That seems to be why we can't necessarily get our head completely around it. Whereas some of the goddesses have really human characteristics.
Yeah.
And archetypes, so we can more identify with. Whereas the kind of idea of the source is often quite difficult to get your head around, isn't it? Because it's infinity. It's so expansive. It's a place. That is very precious, and I mean, I don't think we often connect to, or we have to go through many, many layers to connect to. So okay, so you were initiated as a priestess of Sophia. You were working with Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, and somewhere I think before I got initiated as a priestess of Sophia, I went to Hawaii, and that was a huge spiritual awakening for me. So I'd done like a 2-year priestess of the goddess thing. So I was firmly on my priestess path there. And Josh, who's my eldest, he was quite little. He was about 3 or something. But for some reason, Joshua's dad, There used to be a spiritual book magazine called Cygnus, and again, I don't think that exists anymore. And they were in Wales, and they would send through a magazine once a month with all the new spiritual books, and people could advertise in the back. And in the back, there was this little advert for a dolphin goddess retreat in Hawaii. And Mark picked it up and said to me, "Why don't you go?" Because I've always been dolphin crazy since I was a kid. And I was like, "Oh, I can't do that. It's too much money. How will you manage without me?" Joshua's only, I don't know, when did I go? 2005. He would have been 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And he was like, "We'll be fine. You can go.
Yeah.
There's enough money. Why don't you do it?" And I was just like, I was almost like horrified that he was suggesting it, because it was just
It's quite a big deal, isn't it? When you got your 2-year-old, it is a big thing.
Yeah. And also the money as well. It was quite a lot to pay out. But I couldn't like get rid of it, because of course I absolutely wanted to go. But Hawaii was never somewhere I'd been drawn to. I'd never felt like, oh, I want to go to Hawaii. But it was the dolphin with the thing, and the goddess, and the goddess thing. It was like, oh, but I could just feel this energy. So off I went. And of course they were fine without me. And but Joshua, bless his cotton socks, he was fine all the time I was away. And then when I got back and he saw me at the airport, he started crying his eyes out because he realised how much he'd missed me. He was like, that's it. Yeah. That's it. Little kids are in the now, aren't they? They sort of remember it all. Yeah, but it was beautiful. I went to the Big Island.
So in Hawaii, what did you who did you connect with in Hawaii?
Pele. Yeah, totally.
So tell us a little bit about the goddess Pele for anyone who doesn't know.
So the Hawaiian chain of islands are created by a volcano, and it's lava that flows up, right out of the ground and just solidifies itself. It's also thought to be the top of Lemuria. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of landmass under there that people believe were once, where Lemuria was. And it is just, I love the whole energy of the Pacific Ocean. It's just absolutely, I would marry it if I could. I would marry the Pacific Ocean. It's just, but I mean, when I landed on the Big Island in the middle of the night, I couldn't see anything. And as soon as the plane touched ground, I was just in a state of bliss. I mean, I was in a state of grace the whole time. I think it was 2.5 weeks. And I was just like, the energy there, I just felt like I'd come home, and it
does it feel like home?
Yeah. And it's so divine feminine, that energy. It's just absolutely just gorgeous. And we did things like we went swimming with the dolphins, and we walked along the coast to where the lava is coming out, and we did ceremonies on the beach, and I had so many amazing experiences there. And I had a reading before I went there with a lovely woman called Diana Summer, who was the one who did the first 2 years priestess training with me. And she said to me, "This is going to be the foundation of all of the rest of your work." And it was, it really was, because Pele, I mean, I wrote out this list, Sarah. It's so funny. So part of the ceremony was write out all the things that you want to get rid of. So I had like pages, do you know what I mean? Pages and pages of stuff. I was like, I had no sense of caution or that I was going to have to process all of this or anything. I just went for it, everything possible.
My issues with food, self-sabotage.
It was all on there. And then we burnt it on the lava rocks. And, I didn't think much more about it. And then when we got home, after I got home, I was really affected strongly by jet lag. It's the first time I'd sort of flown that far, and it really kind of pulled me out of my body and put me back in upside
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
Took me weeks to get over it.
yeah.
And so I was not feeling quite myself, to put it mildly. But what, and it was quite cold when I got back. I think I went in February or March. I can't remember now. But I remember we had an old, like fireplace, and there was a coal fire in the hearth. And I was looking at it, and it was time to go to bed. And I could suddenly see Pele looking at me out of his fire, which was a bit of a shock. I was like, what? I could see this like old woman, because you know how coal fires, they're sort of black, and then there's this
Yeah.
greenness, this ash. It was so Pele. And off I went to bed, and I lay down in bed, and suddenly Pele's energy just like entered into me, like just
Yeah.
woof, like that. I was like, fuck,
Yeah.
what's going on? She's come back with me.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, totally. I was like really shocked, because I didn't know that could happen,
Yeah.
And then the next 3 years after that, I spent clearing. Basically, I was clearing. It was all my fault for writing down all that stuff on the beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to use something called Z Point. That was really good. You made all these clearing statements. So I used to do that, and I used to do loads of self-hypnosis and working with staff, and because I was trained in a lot of counselling, and also sort of NLP, and also healing. And so I used all of it. I just spent a couple of years just sitting and clearing and working with the violet flame. I've always been a violet flame fanatic.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I ever worked with, actually, was the violet flame. And that was life. Clearing.
And circling back on the violet flame, is that something that is connected to Quan Yin? Is that?
I don't know, but I found it in quite a lot of different esoteric systems that I've come across. And I think, I've seen it described as an energy that belongs to the earth. But I think all spiritual beings, once they get to a certain point, they all have their own vibration of the violet flame.
Yeah.
I did have a memory once, in the shower. I was suddenly, something about water just gives me spontaneous sort of spiritual connection. And I had this sudden memory of being a priest in Atlantis, and all the fields were collapsing, and I was a priest of the violet flame. And it was a really traumatic memory, because literally everything, like energetically, was falling to pieces, at the end. And I know it was a big thing in Atlantis. The violet flame, but I'm sure Quan Yin, I'm sure it's there in with Quan Yin as well. Why do you get that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. And that is really, really big in your work, the work that I've come across that you do, and been, had the privilege to be a part of your sessions, which are just incredible. So I would really encourage people to and how, so if someone is like, just at this point, someone wants to get stuck in there and get immersed, how would they do that? Have you got trainings coming up? I know I did a Zoom healing with you. It was just, I didn't know anyone on there, but it didn't really matter. It felt very inclusive and not at all scary, I will say. Very relaxed.
Yeah, that's it. And we're all part, all of us that have come on and work like that, we're all part of something, and you can feel it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's like we're all part of some sort of energetic species that all recognizes each other, yeah.
So does it matter where people are in their journey? Can they just sort of?
I don't think so. I think if they feel that zzz, then that's the, in whatever way that is, that's the sign to respond to. But I mean, I have a website, rachelgoodwin.dk, because I'm in Denmark, and I have on one of the headings is classes on there, and I have all the classes that I've done on there, so you can go back and do them. And I've got Violet Flame classes on there, and that Violet Flame Zoom call is still on there, because it's such a deep attunement. It's such a powerful work. People can still like do it now, like retrospectively, And I'm going to plan another one in May, actually. And I will advise people who've not done that violet flame one to go back and do it, because I think it's such a good grounding.
Yeah.
To do the next level. And the reason why I'm so obsessed with the violet flame is because the earth is carrying so much dense energy from the centuries and eons of humanity not being in right relationship with the world. And I'm not into like feeling like we should all feel bad about this. Things have been as they have been. There's been a process going on, and we're at the point now where we suddenly wake up and go, "Ooh, we better clear all that dense stuff up, haven't we?" And that's part of us coming into our mastery and realizing how powerful we are. And Sarah is here to sort of give us these tools. But I mean, there's so much to do beyond the violet flame, but at the moment you can't jump ahead. You've got to clean up first. It's like, if you're a witch and you're casting spells, the first thing you have to do is clean the space that you're going to work in. You can't work in a dirty room full of clutter. Well, you can, but you shouldn't. Not if you want to do not advisable. Not if you want to do good, clean, powerful magic. And it's the same with us, it's the same with the earth.
That's really interesting. So so that the one that I was part of was at Glastonbury, focusing on the orchard in Glastonbury by the Glastonbury tour. Really would recommend you go and listen to that one, because that was just incredible to be part of it. So I'm sure it's just as incredible to listen back and tap into those energies. And you did actually use Pele's fire as a protection, casting a protection circle. And what I found really amusing was actually not too long after that, I saw the news that Pele had erupted again. I just thought that was funny.
Yes, exactly.
He was active again, and I think we definitely needed some Pele energy with everything that's going on in the world, on a material level, on an environmental level, on a political level. I think we're seeing the growing pains, aren't we? Is that? I mean, that's
absolutely,
how
that's a really good way to put it, Sarah. Growing pains is absolutely it. And Kilauea is still erupting, and it has erupted on and off for I don't know, hundreds of years now. And it's really interesting to see the different phases that she goes through. But when I was there standing, because the volcano on the Big Island is massive, there's certain points where you shouldn't live because they're dangerous. But a lot of people, it covers such a huge part of the island. A lot of it is the volcano on the Big Island, and you can live on it quite safely. But when I was there, and because you have like all the sulfur and that coming out of the ground, it is the most purest, gorgeous earth energy I've ever come across, and it is like the new earth. So when the lava is flowing, it's like she's birthing more new earth energies for us. And the ascension grid around Hawaii is just the most cleanest and perfect, and in its original state out of anywhere that I've ever seen on the earth. And I think that's the Pacific and Pele sort of between them, and also the energy grid that the Hawaiian people are holding there as well.
Incredible. So was it when you were going back to when you were in Hawaii and you were doing a retreat there, was this the first point that you, for want of a better word, channeled Sarah, or had a visitation, or how?
It was after I got back, because I had, quite a few experiences there. Like there was one place, it was called the Place of Sanctuary, where it was like just over the sea. It was like there was this almost like, oh God, what was that program when we were kids? And they used to have a round window and a square window, and you would look through the window. Do you remember that? Or perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's not Andy Pandy. Oh God,
I remember it. Yeah, let's go through the square window, the round window.
It was like that. There was this circle above the ocean, and it was like it was like a direct portal to the goddess. And we did this ceremony there, and one of the women, well, there was a woman that we met called Connie, who was lovely, and she was playing like crystal bowls, and it was just, and I did a bit of singing, and all the turtles were like watching us, and it was just incredible. But I knew I was connecting to different like vortexes and portals and things like that, even though like I didn't even really know what they were. I just knew they were. And when I came back, I was like, oh, I have to share this with other people, because one of the things that I've realized that I can do is like electromagnetically, I can connect other people up to these things. So through my connection, I can assist other people in also connecting to it, because all of these places have gatekeepers. You can't just go there and connect up to them. You have to be at a certain point of development. I mean, I don't want to sound like I think I'm better than everybody else. It's not that, but I have, things, and so do other people, like from past lives, and to get that connection yourself, you'd have to live there, work really hard to connect. So I can connect somebody up in like seconds, in a way that would otherwise take them a really long time to do it. So when I came back, I ran a 6-week course, I think it was, possibly called The Power of Pele. Where we connected to these different things, and every week I would open up and channel a different Hawaiian deity or goddess. I think they were mainly goddesses, to be honest. And on the last one, Sarah came through, and it was at the place of sanctuary where this like divine window, the round window, had been. And it was all about love. She gave this channeling that was all about love. Love is the key. And I was a bit shocked, because before this point, she wasn't someone I'd believed in or even been really interested in, to be honest. Because I was quite rejecting of Christianity and anything to do with it, to be honest. It was like, that's not what I didn't want to go back to that. I wanted to sort of leave that in a box somewhere and just ignore it, like the patriarchy. Do you know what I mean? I was like, full of irritation about it. So it was quite a shock to me that she turned up. And then, because I with Jesus and Mary Magdalene, when they turn up, I see them as colours. Yeshua is yellow, Mary Magdalene is bright pink, and Sarah is this really vibrant green. And so I had this vibrant green colour. And then when I went home, I went to bed and shut my eyes, and this vibrant green was still there. And it didn't go away. She just sort of, moved in.
I love that.
Yeah. And then, so I went through another phase then of sort of having another breakdown with it all, because I really thought I'd lost it. I really thought I'd lost the plot, because she was kind of grounding her energy down through me. And as she was doing that, I was getting her memories and her emotions. And, and I think what we have to remember is when Jesus and Mary Magdalene and Sarah, when they were here living a human life, they were human beings with human feelings. And they went through a lot of effing trauma. I mean, a lot of it. They did not have an easy time. And don't think because you're connected to the divine, that means that you don't suffer grief and rage, and because you do, So I went through a lot of stuff, really, because like years before, so like this is the whole interesting thing about psychiatry, isn't it? And how, we decide whether someone's schizophrenic or not, or whatever. I had a vision. I'd had a vision years before where I thought I was losing it when I was, 20, in my late 20s, that I was going to get pregnant with my eldest son. And I think it was Archangel Gabriel came along and told me about him and told me what he was going to be like. And this was before I was even pregnant. And I remember I was in shock after I looking in the mirror going, oh God, I've really lost it now. Oh no. I really thought, was worried I was having a psychotic.
Yeah. Understandably. I think it's such an interesting precarious balance, isn't it, between insanity and enlightenment.
Yeah.
That I'm sure,
Yeah.
Many healers and many sort of consciously awake, spiritual, everyday human beings, everyone. Let's not create divide. Everybody goes through, don't they? Is how to make sense of some of these experiences which are unexplainable yet. And I always say yet. But I think it's very much our upbringing and our social conditioning, and we're still very rooted in the scientific, because we don't have ways necessarily yet to explain things like telepathy and all that phenomena we all experience, this dream, all the ways that we're all existing. We just park it and say, oh, that was just a dream, or that was funny, or that was weird, or that wasn't a vision, that was just my imagination.
Yeah.
Until you want to kind of follow the string, if you like.
Yeah.
But it's helpful to just have an open mind about it, don't you think? I mean,
totally. Yeah.
like, who are we to tell someone else what their reality is?
Oh, I know. Well, actually, I mean, that was a really useful thing that they taught in the training that I did, was when you're working with people with mental health issues, you don't confirm what they're experiencing. You don't deny it. You're just with it, basically. You just allow
Exactly.
it, and you don't like compound it by saying, oh yeah, I think Jesus is there or whatever. You just allow them to be who they. It is an acceptance, and that has been really, really useful in my work, actually. And I've kind of, but in another way, I've had to, and this is what's been quite good, like doing the podcasts and broadcasting and stuff, is to realize that I need to express an opinion now. Because for so many years I've been sort of doing this very kind of, psychotherapeutic thing of just being with things and not really putting my own imprint on things. Now I'm learning, like, maybe the things I think have some value.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's another step, isn't it?
Mm.
And that's scary, right? That's a scary one to cross over.
Well,
yeah,
I sort of feel like I'm getting into my crondom now. So,
yeah,
Danish crones are very into expressing themselves to the extreme.
Yeah.
And I've sort of like got really annoyed with it at first. And then after a while I thought, perhaps I could learn something from this.
Yeah, perhaps there's something I need to be harnessing.
Yes, exactly. So I've embraced it.
Yeah,
rather.
brilliant. Brilliant. Absolutely. Yeah, there are times you have to, I can't think of the old expression, but you tie your colours to the mast, is that it?
Yes,
and just say, look, this is... Yeah. So there's a question I wanted to ask you, and it might seem a bit odd and disjointed, but I wanted to ask you about your experiences as a child. Did you have any sort of experiences as a child in terms of phenomena or fairies or...
I did.
Spirituality now.
Yeah, I did. But I mean, to sort of put it in context, I did not have a particularly happy childhood. My family as a whole was quite stressed. And so it was quite a difficult atmosphere, because I'm so empathic. It was quite a difficult atmosphere for me to grow up in, especially because I realise why. But like, there was always something in me going, it's not supposed to be like this. It's, and I'd be so upset and disturbed and angry because I could feel how it was supposed to be. And I still have, that, right at the center of myself. And I realize now that it's the new earth, and I'm much happier now because I'm much closer to that reality than I was when I was a child. But, so, I mean, like,
where did you find solace then? Where did you go? And
reading.
Did you go to books or
reading? I read books. I mean, I was living in the middle of a town in a little town down on the coast of Kent in the UK, and I loved fantasy. I just read constantly. I mean, I could read a book in a night, I was also a very imaginative child. You know, I used to like pretend I was suddenly in the 1800s or, you know, something like that. I mean, I would say, you know, so I had a lot of empathic impressions of things when I was a kid. I knew how people were feeling. I knew what was going on. And I used to get into a lot of trouble for being a truth teller because people didn't want to hear things being spoken aloud in my family. Everything was sort of, no one talked about anything. You weren't allowed to say anything. No one was allowed to be upset or angry. You know, things were just so repressed. And that was sort of like how the family system coped, because they didn't know how to be any other way, you know. And I spent quite a few years in therapy to sort of learn how to express my feelings. And, you know, it really helped me going into psychiatric nursing, because I learned like, oh, so now you need to go and see a counsellor to learn these skills if you don't have them. And I did, you know, I trained quite a lot in group psychotherapy, and, you know, it was brilliant for me to be able to observe other people and see, oh, this is really dysfunctional. And, oh, this is like being at home. This is not normal, because, of course, you know, like many people, I was told, you have a happy childhood, you have a normal life, everything is fine. And that sort of disparity of reality was really, you know, caused me a lot of mental stress. And, you know, I would feel like I was mad because it didn't feel, you know, it didn't feel okay to me. But I mean, you know, I would the sort of things that sort of come to me that I remember from when I was a kid, like my dad had a car accident when I was about 7, really, really serious car accident. And the time he had it, I was sitting, working, doing some homework on the kitchen table. And I heard the phone ring and I thought, oh, that's my dad. And then actually the phone wasn't ringing. And he'd had this huge car accident coming out of Dover Harbour, because he worked for Sealing as an engineer on the boats. And he was really badly smashed up and was taken away by air ambulance. And that was the time that I thought he was ringing up. So things like that, you know, I just knew things, and I would have dreams and someone dying and then they'd die. And, you know, but it was all, I managed to dismiss it all as being silly or imagining it, or, you know, all the rest. There was one time, and I was saying it to somebody else. I don't know if it was one of the other podcasts I was doing it, but I was saying to someone about, I remember one time where I just cried and cried and cried in my bedroom for so long. I was just exhausted that I think I must have almost been like out of my body, because, you know, like when you're really distressed, you're not really grounded, are you? And Jesus was at the foot of my bed with 2 other people, and I could just feel them there, and they made me feel so much better. But of course, you know, I said to myself, oh my God, you know, I've really done it this time, getting myself so upset. Now I'm imagining Jesus is sitting at the, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that was really happening to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I had like a sort of a experience. I don't quite know how to label it really, but when I was about 8, being really distressed and seeing Jesus on the ceiling, and he had a white robes and this purple sash. Just remember that, the white robes and the purple sash, and it was just such a vibrant color of purple, and just feeling really like warm and safe, and then just dismiss, you know, I laugh about it. Oh, I saw Jesus on the ceiling. You know, it's funny, isn't it? How how connected we are as children. And then how we look back on those experiences, and do we dismiss them, or do we actually think, oh,
and in a different culture, they would have been welcomed and embraced, and, you know, taken into the fold of the community, and we would have been recognized for the people in the tribe who can have these sort of experience, and we would have been made use of and acknowledged. And hopefully this is something that we're moving back towards now, so that people like us are not ridiculed, but actually oh, you have a purpose. You can help.
Yeah. And I know for women as well, there's so much ancestral trauma around acknowledging these gifts and these experiences. I keep calling them experiences. That would get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, now yes, you can be labelled crazy. I think that's, replaced being burnt as a witch.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. And I'm one of my sessions I had with Edwin, because Edwin Courtney sort of helped me get some of my sanity back when Sarah was sort of like, like embodying her energy through me, shall we say. And he helped me sort of get some perspective and understanding. But in one of the sessions he did with me, he told me that in a fairly recent life I was institutionalized as a patient in a Victorian psychiatric hospital, and that made a lot of sense to me, because I used to get really upset about patients who were being mistreated. And when the Mental Health Act, I went and worked at a private hospital, and the Mental Health Act was being used in ways that I didn't think was right. And one of the things was that when someone was on observations, they used to keep them in their night clothes. Yeah. And I said, you can't do this. This is, that's humiliating for that person to have to go around the ward in their nightie all the time. Because, like maybe people don't realise, but on psychiatric wards, everyone wears normal clothes, including the nursing staff, because people aren't sick, like in an infectious way. They're physically, generally okay. And the nurse manager, who was a guy, thought I was being unstable because I burst into tears. I was so upset, because he was like, no, this is the way we do it. And I was like, you can't, this is draconian, you can't treat. And they used to use electroconvulsive therapy on anorexic girls who, I mean, ECT has its place. I've seen it do miraculous things with some manic psychotic patients, but they used to use it for neurotic illnesses unnecessarily. And I used to get, and they had people on so many drugs. And this was a place that was charging, I don't know, I think it was £3,000 a night or something. And I used to go around in a rage and fight with doctors, and because I was really against the medical model, actually. I was like, no, I'm a nurse, we have our own body of knowledge and all these things. And doctors used to hide from me. I bet you were great. I was great. I completely exhausted myself, but doctors used to hide from me, like when they saw me come in, and there was me on my tiny little salary while they were getting these huge salaries full of noughts, But when I left, this nurse manager, who had been so sort of like derisory towards me, he had by this time realized that I was actually really, really good at my job, and he was like offering me all these courses, and I'll give you this if you stay, and I'll give it. And I was like, no, I don't want to work. I don't want to work under the medical model. And off I went to the women's service, where we were a nurse-led unit. We had no doctors on site. We had a psychiatrist who would come around once a week and do her ward round, but we assessed patients, we decided who was admitted, and it was great. I mean, but I have to say, Sarah, that brought its own problems.
I'm sure.
There's something about nurses and doctors working together that actually balance each other up that I've come to appreciate now. But the thing is, neither one or the other should sort of be overpowering the other. It has to be an equal relationship, and then it works. I think then it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, mental health has definitely got a very dark history, hasn't it? In terms of oppressing people, and it's something that I've had to confront in my work, and really go back and study the history, and really try to come to terms with what it is I'm doing and what I'm part of, which is an ongoing journey, really. But yeah, I think if I definitely acknowledge that ancestral trauma around treatment of women, and what potentially, like you say, in a different culture would be gifts. So I think it's still, even now today, it's still very brave. to stand out and say, these are my gifts. Even in today's where we are now in 2021, I think it's still heroic.
I mean, in a way, I
thing to
feel
do.
like, it doesn't feel,
So
it doesn't
salute you.
Yeah, thank you. It doesn't feel so hard for me now, because I suppose I surround myself with people who, if not, agreeable, don't, sort of make me suffer for it. But generally,
Yeah.
people have an acceptance for who I am that are in my life, so I don't have to, go through a lot of stuff. I keep all the comments turned off on YouTube videos, because there's a lot of trolls on YouTube for whatever reason, and a lot of my work is invisible to people. But every now and then, I get sort of hate mail and insulted, but it's usually more about the religion thing. Like, people feel like working with Sarah is like I'm taking advantage of weak people who will, get turned by some sort of cult or something like that. And I just say, God, it's so far from that. But you can't explain. If people aren't sensitive enough to understand the energies, you can't really explain it to them.
Yeah.
Because they're coming from a different mindset. And how can you talk that language to them if they don't understand vibration and energy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, I have to say on this note, if anybody is worried about that, who might be listening, Rachel is like genuinely one of the most authentic people I think I've come across in like the sort of spiritual world. Really, really down to earth. And that's what I really like about you. What you see is what you get. And you're so connected to your human experience. You're not unapproachable or completely out there, or make anyone feel any less than. And for me, that's really engaging. And I think we do have to be cautious, don't we? Because there are people out there who are offering spiritual services and doing things that, we have to use our discernment. So it's got to feel right for you, hasn't it? It's got to feel a right fit, just like exactly the same as making friends, going out there, meeting people, the vibes that you get, just got to listen to those.
Yeah. Just on that note, I was reading an article the other day, and it said possibly we choose our friends on their brainwave patterns. It was a research study that had seen that people who are friends together have similarities in their brain patterns. And I was like,
oh, that's fascinating.
Wow, isn't that amazing? And they can see that. I love it. I just love it.
Well, I mean, going back to like the idea of things that we can't necessarily prove yet, I think that there will be a lot of answers in science for a lot of experiences that we have, which maybe aren't explainable yet. So I wanted to ask you, what would be your sort of key messages for people through everything you've learned, your journey? I mean, there's a lot for me, just to consolidate, a lot about you cleaning house.
Yeah. So I suppose, like, if I go back to that thing I was saying about, like, when I was a kid, I had this image inside of myself of where we should be, and it was so far from like my experience of life of where I was as a kid. And but now as I've got older, the energies on the planet have actually lifted a lot since 1970 when I was born. And I kind of know that experientially inside myself, because I experience energy as an energy reader. And so I still have this vision of the new earth, so I kind of know, I feel, where we're going. And Sarah, I mean, we call her Ascended Master Sarah to put her in a context for people, but she's not Ascended Master Sarah in my mind. She's Sarah. She is a teacher and a mentor for the new age, and she very much walks by our side. She's not there to tell us what to do. So if I ask her for guidance, on very rare occasions, she's said direct things like do it on Sunday or whatever. but most of the time, what she does is she deals with the part of me that needs to be helped. So, like, if I don't know what to do, it's because there's some fear in the way. So she's very, very, like with me anyway, she's very psychological in the way that she works. She's a bit like, to me, she's a bit like a psychotherapist, you know, for free. and you know, and I think this is how she's come to show us how to do it ourselves. She's for people who want a mentor. She's not for people who want a guide that's going to go, right, and now do this and now do that. And she's just so amazing at helping us go towards the new earth. And this year, so I saw on someone's post on Facebook, but you know, my memory is not great, but it was an astrology thing that said there's loads of connections in 2021 about the Aquarius thing, which is sort of connecting to the whole new earth thing. And I just lit up when I read it, because like last year, I mean, it's, you know, there's so much difficulty around COVID and everything that's happened. But for myself, energetically, I totally came online. It was like, I know what I'm doing now. All of the social constraints just fell away. I don't care, because from what I see, the world really needs me and all of us right now. And I've just lost all of my inhibitions. And I just feel like right now, all of my energy is just going where it needs to be. And I think this is because Sarah has really years, like I've been working with her for 15 years, but a lot of that was like a mirror image. It was like when you throw a stone in the water and the ripples go out. So it was like her energy was coming back through time. And I always knew this. I always said this to people. Yeah. And now she is nearly here, 100%. Yeah. She's still not quite. We've got to ground her energies a bit more. But, you know, if you're working with the new earth or whatever, she has so much to give. I mean, so much to offer. She's just so blinking useful. It's untrue. Yeah. So I suppose.
So how much is Sarah and how much is Rachel? How much? What percentage wise?
Well, I mean, of course, you know,
how do you marry that together? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, as a channel and a healer, she's coming through my lens. So obviously, the way I'm teaching about her is, you know, coming through the color of Rachel. So everything I say about Sarah, there's going to be, you know, parts
That's what
of
I like.
me. Yeah, thank you.
Like she's chosen you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I still don't really know, you know, what that's why. but what I mean, one of the things I do know is, you know, I'm not the only one. She holds a certain archetypal energy of the divine, and I see it as this very vibrant green color, and it has woven in and out of other religions, and it's been like quite down, like if you imagine it as a thread, like in a weave of a tapestry, and it's going up and down. It's been very far down in the collective unconscious, and now it's coming back up again. And in those times where it's going up and down, when it's been up, it's been present in certain cultures, and there have been people who have been working with this energy. You could say like the priests and priestesses of Sarah, for want of a better description, and they are the ones that are waking up to her now and going zzz. There's also people who feel they are aspects of Sarah, and you know, that's quite possible. Yeshua came here and he sort of did it all in one thing. But what we need now is we don't need one person sort of doing it all. We need to do it. So it's quite possible that, because I mean, I had this vision of my higher self once, and it was so massive. It was like I couldn't really get my head around it. And also the divine, I mean, it's just like our poor little brains, we can't really imagine how huge we are.
It's a bit too big, isn't it?
So for Sarah to take a tiny bit of herself and split it up into 1 million people is really quite possible. I mean, this is not beyond the realms of imagination. And I think there's a lot of Sarah aspects out there. Some of them are conscious of it, some of them aren't, but they're all helping ground the energy, because there's a huge split we need to get over between where we are now and this integrated consciousness of where we're going. And it's like a physical layer in the earth as well. And so that's a lot of where we're about to go, and where we'll be working with Sarah's Flame of Divinity in May. We're working with the Violet Flame, grounding that in Glastonbury last year. And then the next thing is to bring in this next aspect of the flame. And then the year after that, it will be the green energy, which is actually embodied in Malta at the moment. just throw that in, because I would just love to mention that, because it's just, I love Malta. I just love that.
Now, is that another volcanic? Is that is Malta a volcanic island? Is it?
I think it might be. I can't remember actually. It's been too long since I read it, and things only stay in my brain for about 2 seconds.
I don't know if it is or isn't, but suddenly popped in my head.
So lots happening.
So really now, for me, you're getting really into your work, and I think that people can. It's a really good stepping stone now, isn't it, for people to go into your website? That there is so much free content you put out there, and you're really generous with that. And there's, for anyone coming across your work now, like I did, there's just so much to dive into, isn't there?
Yeah.
And you've written a little book.
I have. I've got.
Which I have to confess, I haven't read yet. I really want to.
It's available on Amazon worldwide as a Kindle and as a paper book.
Must get that book.
Paper.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, and my life at the moment is like I'm teaching. So from all these years of working with Sarah's energy, I've put together with Sarah a actual healing system, which you get initiations like Reiki. So I'm teaching that once a month.
So exciting.
Yeah. I'm working on Patreon. I have Sarah's Ascension Pathway. She gave me a 12-step program to embodied ascension. This is the second year I've worked with the material now. And then next year will be the third year, and I will write it up into a book. So what my vision is, that as I, because someone said to me, how do you do it today? She said, how do you do everything that you do? Well, it's because I've been doing it for 15 years. So a lot of what I'm doing, it's had 15 years preparation. I haven't suddenly developed this material overnight. And a lot of it is only just starting to see the surface now. So I'm hoping that, the reason I put out so much free stuff is because people don't know who Sarah is. So they're not looking for her. Right. How are they going to find her? I'm charging for someone's no one ever heard of.
Yeah. So on that note, can you recommend, if people are like, oh, who is this Ascended Master Sarah? Is there any books that you would tell people to read? Or there's
a blog on my website. Yeah, with an article, 16 books that mention Sarah.
Oh, amazing! There we go. Check that out. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. So that's a good place to have a look and see which ones sort of vibrate as you look at it.
You've got the classic watch the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, and that's it. That's on there. That's on there because that is where, it's sort of
don't know anything about
out.
it. Just watch the Da Vinci Code, and then
because you definitely get the vibration of that divine feminine energy, don't you? And then it's spread out through the media from that. I remember when I watched that film, I was like, oh, this is just magic. And also Kathleen McGowan as well. She has also put out these things, and it's just growing. I see Sarah, and because people say, oh, you say Sarah, don't you? And how do you spell it? And I say, well, the thing is, to me, she doesn't have a name. She comes to me as an energy, and and the names, it doesn't matter. I don't actually have an attachment to a certain name, or I think they're all great, to be honest. And I do. And I love all the different stories and myths, and more of them are growing up now around her, and I think it's beautiful because they all speak a divine truth. And I don't think anyone should really look for concrete things around Sarah, in a historical sense, because what does it matter actually? That this person has written this, that Sarah died this way, and someone else has said no, that's completely wrong, it happened like this. Just be with all of them You know, I know that's sort of very Jungian psychoanalytical of me, but that's how I feel about it. It's like allow the beauty of each possibility to tell you a different thing about Sarah, because they all tell you something about her.
That's fantastic. So just very quickly, what's your connection to Mr. Jung? I know, because you've already told me.
My husband is a Jungian psychoanalyst. Yes.
Oh, I love that. I love it when I heard that. I was like, oh, ex-psychiatric nurse, Jungian analyst. And where did you meet?
We met at the Finton Foundation in Scotland. Yeah.
Amazing.
I went there. Someone did a reading for me in Glastonbury, and they said to me, because I said, please tell me what to do next. I don't know what to do. And they said to me, you do know what to do. Just go and sit down and really think about it. And I sat down and I really thought about it. And I thought, I don't know what to do. I don't know. And then I went, I've always, what one thing have I not done that I've always wanted to do? Ever since I read about Finton, I had this massive zzz. I knew I had to go there. So that's it. So I booked myself on a trip there, and yeah, I so didn't want to meet a man.
And found a husband.
I didn't want a husband. I'd so had enough of men and relationships, and I was so ready for being on my own, and that so didn't work out for me.
And that's why you're in Denmark, right?
That is why I'm in Denmark. Yeah. And, you know, I still feel a bit double about it, because I do miss the UK. I do miss being surrounded by people who speak English as a first language.
Yeah.
I have found Danish very difficult to learn.
I can imagine.
And I can read news articles and things like that. I can manage in shops, but under no circumstances can we imagine that I'm fluent in Danish. And, you know, I struggle. You know, we have a child with special needs, and we have regular multidisciplinary professional team meetings that are all held in Danish.
Oh, in Danish. Oh, my goodness.
Because they can't manage, they can't sit and do it in English. I mean, like one-to-one, certain people can, but a lot of people can't. But on the whole, we manage. Like if they speak in Danish and I speak in English, it goes all right. But when they all start talking together, the problem is they all talk at top speed. Yeah. And, you know, what I often say to people is, you don't realise if you were sitting in the UK with me and all my English cohorts, you wouldn't understand us either. People don't realise how much I slow my language down so they understand me. I have to strip out a lot of colloquialisms because you don't realise the way you speak. Foreigners have no understanding of what you're on about, because we talk so much in colloquialisms.
Yeah. So, 2 peas in a pod, or all the little sayings, and
So I've had to, and I really like speaking English, so I've had to lose a lot of my, you know, native tongue. But I mean, on the other hand, you know, it's like the scales, isn't it? On the other hand, I live in a town where there's all these natural sacred springs coming up everywhere. I mean, it's just incredible place to live. I love all the grauhoys, you know, all the dolmens, and I've also got another way of working out of being here, because I'm training as a Seithkoner, which is a Nordic shaman, wise woman, witch person. And I love it. I've so had a past life working with runes and all of this stuff. And the funny thing is, I think Sarah has as well. I get these visions.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I get these visions of her being a forest witch.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, surrounded by beech trees. And the funny thing is, other people have as well, like completely independently of me. There was this Dutch guy I was working with, and he said, oh, what do you think of this? I did your exercise and I saw Sarah in green wool dress surrounded by a beech forest with a wolf with her. And I just went, that's so Scandinavian. Oh, my God. Or Baltic, you know, that whole area. It just feels like... you know, I really feel her. And of course, why should she have been an Arab or a Jew or whatever in all of her lifetimes? Of course she wouldn't have. Of course she wouldn't have been. So I think I can make a dubious claim that. And also, somebody wrote to me once, there's this lovely spring in Roskilde called St. Hans Spring, which is actually the Danish name for St. John the Baptist. but I feel like it's Sarah's spring. It has this total Sarah energy there.
Yeah.
And you know, I have another page on Facebook called The Sacred Springs of Roskilde, and I share these pictures. And someone wrote on there once and said, and it's too long ago now, I can't find out who it was, but she said on there, and this is before it even entered my head, I was like, oh, don't be silly. But she said, do you think Sarah could have been a Viking? Because I had this vision of her sailing around and all, and I was like, no. and then actually I started having that vision in my own way, not so much as a Viking perhaps, but in an earlier time. The Viking era came quite late actually, but
I would love to do another interview on that actually, as exploring that aspect of Sarah and you know, the forest witch and that kind of Nordic associations and everything that you've learned from the landscape that you're in. And I think there's a lot about that.
Let's do that.
So exciting.
Yeah, because I have a lot to say about it.
I know you do. And you need to get it out. So if we do decide to do another one of these, I think that would be a really good place to explore.
Yeah. But if people want to come along and see what I'm doing, I mean, on Facebook we have Sarah's Sacred Healing Group. Like on Sunday, we're doing a free healing, and we do that every thank you. We do that every 2 months.
Yeah.
And the other month in between, I do like a Zoom call where we do like a healing intensive. And if you come along to the group, you can find out all these things. If you want to know what's coming up, the best way is to sign up for my newsletter, which is on my website at the bottom. You can sign up there. But because people say, you know, sometimes they can't keep up with me because I have things on Patreon and I have things here and I have things there. I know it is a bit difficult, but if you sign up for my newsletter, it all, you know, all the information.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And I think with there's so much about your offer that you can just dip into. You can just do like the free healings if you want, right up to subscribing and becoming a member and actually taking your training courses. So there's something for everyone, I think, isn't there?
I think so because I do a mentorship program with people as well, because Sarah is just such a powerful healing and empowering presence to work with, and that is the only way to work with me one-to-one really these days, and that is so people sort of enter into doing a monthly thing, and I offer a much cheaper rate. I do one-to-one sessions, but I charge a lot more for them now because I'm just so busy doing all the Greek work, and I'm writing another book in March, and do you know what I mean? I have it's just I don't want to use up that bit of energy that I have for that individual thing when I need it to give it. I feel like I need to give it out. So, you know, I'm training other people to be Sarah healers and things now.
Yeah.
And then I'm advertising them. They're the ones, you know, come and get healing with them because they're fantastic, you know, and that's what I want to do. I sort of want to train other people to sort of go out there, and because she's there for all of us. It's not just me that can connect with her. There's all these other people, and we're like this huge Sarah circle. It's just fantastic.
Beautiful. And isn't that wonderful when you've actually spent, you know, like all those years and then through experientially putting this healing modality together, and for it to be finished and for it to literally just like give birth to it and go like, that's it, let go.
It's amazing. And the energies are phenomenal. They are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you feel like you're physically being lifted up into your higher self, and like all these light cells are like coming down into your physical body, and then you're bringing it all back in, and then Sarah like weaves it all into the earth plane, and it's just like and it's just such a joy for me. Because like, I mean, I can only teach 7 people at a time in it because I have to give everyone like an individual like initiation. But the incredible feedback, they all feel it as well. And it's just brilliant. They're going, oh my God, I've never felt anything like this before. And I was like, and it's just brilliant because when it's just me saying it, I feel like a lone voice going, it is really good, honest.
But people need to go out and do it, don't they? They need to experience it. then it's about the modality, not so much about you, the person. It's something you've clearly just had the privilege to be, you know, I don't know the word, endowed with.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And I feel like I'm a part of something greater, you know, and it's just fantastic to be, like a torchbearer that other people can come along and light their flame from. Because a lot of people have said that after working with me or doing the class, because there's loads of really great classes on the website, that their connection with Sarah was just so much clearer. So I mean, I do feel, and this has been told to me quite a few times, and it has sort of come to me like in ways where I'm not just thinking it, but I do feel I have like a DNA connection to Sarah, and I do feel like that is one of the reasons why I'm such a clear channel for her energy. I don't feel like I'm her, because I think like we work in partnership together. If I was her, I think that would get really confusing. I don't think it would be a good working relationship.
No, that's never come across.
But I think there's certain genetic things in my family line that make me a good person and technologically able to like light other people's flames. And because like I said, I've got this electromagnetic thing that goes on where people can just like use me as a bridge, you know.
I think there's something in that, isn't there, above this handed down, it being a generational ancestral being, you know, maybe it comes through the maternal lineage. I don't know, but you do some great stuff on working with ancestors.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple of meditations you've done that are absolutely incredible, and I really advise people to check that out. So I mean, I've got to say, Rachel, your work is so diverse. It encompasses so many different aspects. Yeah, it just really nicely fits together in a really embodied way.
Yeah,
I think that word, embodied.
Yeah.
And I just had this real image of Sarah as the weaver then, as you were saying. And I could see her on a loom.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Now that really connects with this Nordic tradition of weaving.
It's the Norns. The Norns are the weavers. So we'll get onto that. Because I can tell you some real amazing stories about that.
Okay, because that just came through really, really, really clearly as an image there. So
yeah. So we'll leave on that note, because like that's really beautiful energy.
It is, isn't it?
Finish with, and then for us to start our next one.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been amazing to connect with you today. Thank you for sharing so openly. I hope people enjoy this as much as I've enjoyed getting to know you and hearing your story. I think what it hopefully will do is when you go and explore Rachel's work, it will give you a deeper connection with it, just knowing more about you and your life.
Yeah. And also, like, because Sarah's work, it's all about us finding our own soul essence and that we're divine. So it's about us
in ourselves
realizing, oh my God, I'm the divine. So she wants to take us home, each of us to take us home to ourselves. It's not so much she wants to take us to her. She wants her to take us to us.
Yes. That's a beautiful message, actually, to end it on, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for interviewing me so nicely.
Oh, I'm glad it was okay. I was like, I have no idea how or where this is going to go, but I do always trust my conversations are going to be.
Yeah. I knew it'd be good because I love talking to you. And it's just fun. So
vice versa.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So bye, everyone. We'll be back again some other
time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Back again.
Bye. Auheia valeyana oe e kaliko puakukui. Huia o kaunaia a kapu ke momoni nei. Iko I kahimanao I kahapili ko aloa ia. Hea ke kaula lo pia ana he kopu kapaliliai. Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puhakukui. Au heia valeana oe e kahaliko puhakukui. Kuhi au kaunaia a kahapu kupumoninei. Pikui kahimanaho I kahapili koholuaia. Ea ke kaula lo pihana e kopu kapaliliai. Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puokukui. Au heia valeana oe e kahaliko puokukui. Kuhi au konaia a kahapu ke momoninei. Ikoi kahimanaho I kahapili kuhaluaia. Ea ke kaula lo pihana he kopu kapaliliai. Haina mai kapuana e kahaliko puhakukui. He noa no na ka ui